Hey everyone, I'm Lucy, and joining me today is Lou Studdert from Toys for Bob to talk about a brand new Crash Bandicoot game. Lou, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here and finally get to chat about Crash Bandicoot 4.
I know, it's wild that you even say that, because Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped was 98, so that game can drink legally now, which is weird to think of. And now we're getting a brand new numbered entry in the series. So what does it feel like working at Toys for Bob, not revisiting this franchise, because obviously you guys have worked on it before, but what is it, putting a numbered stamp on that franchise?
I mean, honestly, it goes to the original intent with what we want to do with this game, which is, we fell in love with those original games, back in drinking age over 20 years ago. And for us, it's a wholly unique game. Like, there's never been a platformer that's felt like a Crash Bandicoot game. And so for us, the main idea with Crash Bandicoot 4 was to go back to what made those games special and to bring that to a modern era. So they, play like the original games, continue the story from those original games, but at the same time, we're adding our own modern spin to it. And so we're just super thrilled as fans of the franchise to be able to kind of add to its storied history.
And speaking of story, it does pick up pretty much where 3 left off in terms of the canon. So where do we find ourselves at the start of Crash Bandicoot 4?
The start of Crash Bandicoot 4, a number of years have passed since at the end of Crash Bandicoot 3, Entropy, Neocortex, and Uka Uka had been banished kind of to the end of time and space. And so they have been spending all of this time trying to find a way to break out. Our game starts where those enemies, those villains, have actually figured a way to break free from their prison. And in doing so, kind of leaves a villain-sized hole in time and space. And so it leaves Crash and Coco on the pursuit of finding the 4 quantum masks in an effort to aid them in kind of stopping all of this calamity and kind of fixing time and space.
What do these quantum masks do? Is it similar to, the abilities that you get in Crash Bandicoot 3, or is it something new completely?
So it's something brand new, and it's something really cool in that you're going to be meeting these characters along this adventure. And once they kind of join your team, there will be areas in the levels where they'll come in and help you. So similar to how Aku would be placed in a level, these masks, these 4 quantum masks, will show up and aid in the gameplay. And we're talking about 2 of them today. And they put a really new spin on the platforming questions and the things that you're going to be doing as Crash or Coco, in that they actually equip as a suit. And then you have the 2 we're talking about are Kapunawa, who is the time mask, and then Ika Ika, who is the gravity mask. And so if you get either of them, they equip as a suit on your character, and then you have control over their reality-bending powers. And so that means if you're wearing Kapunawa, she can slow down time. And so you'll be doing all this crazy platforming, encountering all these crazy challenges where you need to actually utilize the power of time to slow it down. So you can actually imagine a situation where you're encountering nitro boxes, which are, a classic Crash, hazard. But if you time slow it, you actually have the amount of time to hop on them before they explode. And then Ika Ika allows you to switch your center of gravity, allows you to completely flip your character's gravity. So you could be in the middle of a sequence, press the button, and boom, now you're on the ceiling. And so then you're running on the ceiling in some crazy scenario where you're actually platforming upside down.
And I noticed you've been saying Crash and Coco, so we're playing as both.
Yep, the entire game you can choose to play as either Crash or Coco. Both of them are actually present in the story, so in every cutscene, it's like they're traveling together. We wanted to make sure that they're kind of on equal measure through the story, but they're not actually the only playable characters. So we're hinting a bit at some additional playable characters through the adventure. Can't say too much, but playing as Neocortex, getting a whole new perspective on everything would be a lot of fun.
Except for maybe Crash Team Racing or Crash Bash, you never really think of Cortex as a playable character. You just think of him as the nefarious bad guy. And speaking of nefarious bad guys, I assume big over-the-top boss battles.
Yeah, we're going really big. I mean, I always look back at the original games and, while they were super fun boss fights, they're actually pretty small. I remember the first boss fight in Crash Bandicoot was against a man in a house. And so we're taking that and we're blowing it up. We're going really big. And so some of the things that, we've got is we've got some fan favorite characters and enemies returning. And so one of the folks we're talking about today is Engine. is returning, and then in this game he's got a giant, enormous mech. And so it's kind of the Toys for Bob spin. We want to take, what was fun about these original games and just make them larger, make them more imposing, and just make it really exciting for the player.
Thinking back to when I was playing it as a kid, when I played it on Vita, when I played the sort of remake from a few years ago, it's like those games are way tougher than I seem to remember at the time. I like to think that maybe as a child I was a real pro gamer, and maybe I've just lost that. How do you kind of balance that difficulty when making a platformer?
I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that we think is kind of part of that core DNA of Crash Bandicoot. It's that it's asking you this really tense precision execution question as a player. But for us as a team, we want to make sure that the game is accessible. So we're kind of looking at ways to expand in both directions. So one of the things that we're talking about is the fact that we're actually introducing what we call modern or retro modes when you choose to play the game. And these modes actually dictate how kind of death behaves in the game. So if you choose modern, what you'll be doing is if you die, you're going to restart from the checkpoint every time. You'll restart from the checkpoint. You can kind of keep taking on that challenge and seeing if you can make it through. But if you choose retro, you have lives. If you die, more than the number of lives you have, we're going to toss you a game over and you're going to have to start from the beginning. But what that does is that actually changes how we treat Wumpa, because in the original games, Wumpa would give you lives. So we're doing that for retro mode, but for modern mode, what we're doing is we're actually tying that into kind of the collection and end of level rewards. So we're actually giving you an extra ask of trying to collect these Wumpa to get rewards. So
is there going to be a set amount per level now?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're actually kind of doing both in a fun way. So in retro mode, it will actually continue to have that 100 gives you an extra life. But across both of them, for the collection mechanic, there is a fixed amount. So the way that it kind of works is that if you die, that grind of your extra life is still there, but you're still collecting a fixed number of Wumpa along the way. So I think once you get your hands on it, you'll be able to see.
Gotcha. And how do you kind of balance making a game that is going to appeal to, the people who grew up with Crash Bandicoot, but also modernizing it for a brand new audience? Yeah,
I mean, honestly, it's things like this modern and retro. It's quality of life improvements. It's making it so that way you have some right stick camera control while you're going through your adventure. We're still making it super accessible and being true to the original games by having, say, a game authored camera. So that way you're changing those fun perspectives and it feels like a Crash Bandicoot game. But we're adding additional things. We're also adding platforming tricks to Crash and Coco's moveset. So the ability to wall run, rope swing, rail grind. So just a number of different things that just make him or her feel really great to play.
Is wall riding and all that in from the beginning, or are they unlockable as you get through the campaign?
They're in from the beginning. It depends on the levels themselves, So obviously if there's a rope to swing on, you can swing on the rope.
How long has it been in development now?
I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I don't know the specific date, but for us, it's one of those things where we've been working hard on it for a while now, and seeing the response from fans to, the Insane Trilogy, to CTR, to seeing that kind of fan outcry of just wanting to play these original games and wanting to play in that original style, kind of put the wind in our sails to know that what we're doing is kind of the right call in making a game that feels like these original games, but is a true from the ground up sequel, completely new engine, completely new art style, completely new adventure. And it's something that we're just incredibly thrilled to be bringing to the fans.
Crash has such an iconic look that, everyone knows. What's it like putting a new spin on that? Spin on it.
Yeah.
I swore to myself I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. The dad jokes are strong with this franchise.
Yeah.
No, honestly, it's been a complete dream come true for the studio. We have just, they're fans of the franchise, but they're also fans of what the original franchise was actually trying to build upon, which is this kind of real great history of animation. And so it's been a real fun thing for our studio to push on animation techniques, to look at the old, animated cartoons that Crash and, those original games were referencing. And so to push the techniques, to push, the emotive animation and fluidity of kind of the character models, our studio's been having a blast doing. And then for the levels themselves, it's been really cool because while we're embracing this original kind of more old school kind of flow through the levels. We're actually expanding the vistas. We're expanding the scope of these levels. We're expanding the feeling of these levels in ways that the original games couldn't. So we're taking you to different times and different dimensions that just look stunning, and we can't wait to show more.
Just thinking back to some of those classic levels that, like, obviously, I'm gonna get the name wrong, but the one was of the boulders, Wild Hog
Sure.
Wild,
Hog Wild. You get jungle
Wild
rollers, you get all those, yeah.
So are we going to kind of see sort of facets of those levels in Crash 4, or like homages? Great Wall as well.
There's a lot of history in the Crash Bandicoot franchise, and we are huge fans of it. So I can't give too many details away, but at the same time, we want to make sure that it feels like a Crash game.
Well, a huge thing that'll make it feel like a Crash game is the music too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we honestly, the music's been a huge thing, and actually one of the, I don't want to say the foundations of our studio, but we have a real huge musical background in our studio. Some of our key studio leadership originally came from kind of the music background, and so musicality is something that's super important to the team. And so we've got a brand new, fully composed soundtrack that we'll be talking about more later in the future, and also just a real great musical influence through the game that I think will be really apparent when you see it.
Oh, I'm genuinely so excited. It makes it like Crash is one of those franchises that makes you feel like a kid again. And I suppose for sort of the generation that grew up with Crash, they're now having their own kids and like passing the franchise down. Did it kind of feel like a passing of the torch between, the studios that like Naughty Dog who held the franchise before, and now it's kind of toys for Bobs?
I don't know necessarily like a passing of the torch. To us, it felt more like getting to play in a sandbox that we've always loved, and so getting to be the nerdy fans who are now kind of sculpting the future of something that we know and love and just are super passionate about. And so, I keep jokingly, it's like I get to go to work and make a platformer that is just pure fun. And it's like, I couldn't be happier to be working on this. And I think it's the same way with the rest of the studio, Toys for Bob. This is the type of game that we love to play. And so getting to be able to make that and put all of kind of the hopes and wants and dreams for this franchise that we've had as fans into it has just been a dream come true.
Fantastic. When can we hear more? Soon,
I hope. I think we have lots and lots of stuff to show. And I think everyone's going to be really excited to see it.
Great, Lou. Thank you so much. For more on Crash Bandicoot 4, make sure you stay tuned to GameSpot, of course. And for all the big summer announcements, we have Play for All running for the whole time. All the biggest new games. Make sure you keep it GameSpot.